Go Queensland, everybody. Welcome back to the Porter Says podcast with your host and only host, Heath, of course. Okay. I understand that I'm wearing blue because obviously currently State of Origin is on right now and I shouldn't be because I am not from said place of New South Wales, Australia. So I shouldn't be wearing blue, but it was the only jacket downstairs here and I was out in the cold before. But it gave me an excuse, really, because this is the 30th episode of the Porter Says podcast, so I figured, why not? Why not do a little celebration? I mean, this just isn't, this isn't just Pepsi Max, guys. So, and it made sense because, again, State of Origin's on, but I wanted to film, because I honestly want to get this episode out to you guys as soon as possible. So, in terms of what is going to be discussed in this episode is going to be reviewing the live action How to Train Your Dragon, because that came out this past week. So last Thursday, I went and saw it opening night with a packed theatre. So, as usual, that will probably be at the end of the episode, or it might be the majority, because I don't really have too much to talk about. I obviously have a couple of other movies that I'm probably going to briefly mention. If you want to know where I'm at with Smallville, because I haven't talked about that in a while, because obviously I still am doing my rewatch currently. I'm on season 9, which I have right here, Smallville season 9. So, it's been a really fun rewatch. I will probably discuss that in a later episode of Smallville once I've finished it, which shouldn't take me too long. But we'll get into it right now. I think there's only one little bit of news that I kind of want to mention, and it's very brief, really, is that Shawshank Redemption apparently is going to get a remake, which I think is just a crime against humanity, because The Shawshank Redemption is one of the greatest movies ever. I know that's a pretty cliche and basic answer to say, but it's true. It really is a great film. And the fact that it's getting remade, it just shouldn't happen. It just shouldn't happen. Just don't. Don't remake the classics, which might come up later with How to Train Your Dragon, but I have my defenses for that, really. That's really the only piece of news that I could find at this point. I haven't seen... I know they just released a I Know What You Did Last Summer, official trailer. I think it's the second trailer maybe, so I haven't watched it yet, so I can't really say much about that. That might be in the next one. So yeah, I think Shawshank Redemption getting a remake was the biggest piece of news that I could find, really, and I just think it's a crime to do it. So I guess I will get onto the couple of films. So I will first go with Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. And I guess Goblet of Fire, because I did watch that a couple of days ago. Obviously, I love Azkaban and I love Goblet. I think both movies are fantastic. Goblet of Fire, adaptation-wise, may not be the greatest, but I think it does a good enough job and it captures the essence of the story, I think. So, I don't really have a problem with it like most people do. But Azkaban, I mean, just one of the best fantasy movies I've personally seen. I think it's beautiful. Beautifully directed. The visuals of that film are so good. It really... I like the time travel aspect. It's a bit messy, but I do really like it. Although the time turner does kind of annoy me because why didn't they bring that back in later installments? But other than that, I really think the Patronus charm at the very end was so cool, and I got to see that in theaters. So seeing that scene up on the big screen was fantastic. But yeah, for me, like, Prison of Azkaban and Goblet of Fire are really another two big hits for me in this franchise. The first four really are all hits for me. Just a personal preference, really. I mean, it's always between Chamber and Prisoner as my favorite. And I think Chamber has possibly topped it. I think there are aspects to Azkaban that are better, and there are aspects to Chamber that are better. So, but just specifically talking about Prisoner and Goblet of Fire, I think both movies are brilliant. And I think Goblet of Fire really... That was the film, like, at the end of it, that really sets what the rest of the franchise is going to be in terms of its tone. Sorry, I'm very itchy up on my nose. It's very annoying, actually, especially when I'm trying to film. But yeah, I think both films are really fantastic. And you'll hear my thoughts on the next few movies whenever I rewatch them. Okay, so the next two, I'm just going to quickly, just kind of like those ones, I'm going to quickly get into them, is 48 Hours, which was a first-time watch. That's Nick Nolte and Eddie Murphy. Very, very well done, like, pretty good, like, early 80s buddy cop kind of film, although Eddie Murphy is actually in prison when we meet him. Nick Nolte is actually the cop. But kind of in that buddy cop area. It's pretty funny. It doesn't really get that. It gets good once Eddie Murphy finally shows up. It's fun. And then The Wedding Ringer, which is a movie with Kevin Hart and Josh Gad and many, many others. Penny from Big Bang Theory is in it. It's a pretty funny movie. I do think it is pretty funny. I think Kevin Hart's great. I enjoy Kevin Hart in general. I think he's like one of the funniest people out there. Like, I think his comedy just works for me. I think for other people it doesn't, and that's fine. But I think just personally, it's kind of like Seth MacFarlane. His comedy just kind of works for me. But The Wedding Ringer, it's just like a really like, it's just a film you put on when there's nothing else to watch, and you just kind of sit there and watch it, and you go, this is a really stupid, raunchy comedy, but it's done well, I think. And that's a comedy movie that's not received very well by audiences or critics or anything. I'm pretty sure it has its fans. I think it's a solid comedy flick that does its job well of making you laugh. At least for me it does. So, yeah. Yeah, those are the films I kind of wanted to just get those out of the way, because I think the biggest thing for me is going to be How to Train Your Dragon, but I'm trying to think of other things. Like, Megan 2's getting pretty close to its release. I think that comes out next week. So, as I said in the previous episode, I'm pretty excited for that one. In terms of like any other TV shows, I haven't been watching much. I've been watching a lot of like other podcasts. Really, basically, I've started watching this one called 13 Again, which I think it's called 14 Again now, but it's both on Spotify and YouTube, so it's clearly everybody seems to be doing that. But the 13 Again podcast, it's really solid. I'd actually recommend giving that one a listen. I'm not trying to like, I figured I'd give them a little shout out because it's a solid podcast so far. And yeah. And then obviously I've been keeping up with the Escape Pod podcast. Yeah. So I guess we'll just get straight into the live action How to Train Your Dragon. I wrote a bunch of notes for this. I should have gone. I was considering like seeing it again to get a bit more onto it, but I just didn't know like what was going on this week because I have some stuff going on that I have to sort out. Just kind of like little personal things, not like super personal, but just like personal enough where I'm just like, okay, I need to focus on this instead of going to see a movie. But you know. Okay, so the How to Train Your Dragon live action movie. It's a film that I've been really anticipating, but also was somewhat skeptical. But once I started seeing a lot of positive stuff and all that, I was like, okay, all right. I'm intrigued by this. I'm more intrigued than I was. And now, look, is it pointless, just like many other live-action remakes, to remake this? Yes, of course it is. It's simply made to get money, but that's how it works. Like, a movie, they want to make money off of it to maybe start a successful franchise or something. But with this one, I think there was a lot of heart and soul put into this. There's a lot of genuine effort because it is the director of the original 3 films, which I love those movies. And I actually watched the first one the day of seeing the new film. Probably wasn't the best idea, but I did it anyway. And I'm sitting there in the theater and it starts up. Sorry, again, this is like really annoying me how itchy my nose is right now. I'm sitting there in the theater and I'm like, all right, let's just see how this plays out. And I have to tell you, guys, it's a great movie. It really is. I really did love this film. I walked out, everybody at the end clapped. When the end credits started, a lot of people in my theater clapped. And I think the biggest thing I can say, really, is that with this movie being made, again, it's very pointless to do. It's like, why are we doing this? But my kind of defense to that and caveat to that is it could possibly, be made for a whole new generation of kids who maybe never even saw the animated films. And they watch this and go, oh, that's really great. Like, that was a lot of fun. I love this movie. And it'll become their definitive version of How to Train Your Dragon. Now, it would probably be a smart thing for those kids to, back themselves into the original 3 movies to see where this idea came from. Yeah, that's why, that's kind of a defense I have for it. So, I do have cons with this one. So, at times, a couple of the performances can be a bit wooden, and there's not too much emotion. I think some of the side characters aren't done as well in live action as they could be. So a lot of like Snot Lout, Tough Nut, Rough Nut, Fish Legs and all that. There's not a whole lot for them to do, really. I thought they would have been given a bit more to do in this film with it being a new version, but they don't. Not necessarily an awful thing, but just a problem I had. Obviously, there were some shots that were very, too similar and very shot for shot of the original animated film. And just, comparing this one to those original 3, it doesn't quite stack up, really. Which I wasn't expecting it to, but it is kind of hard not to. But other than those cons, I think Toothless, our main dragon, the Night Fury, looks great. Visually, this movie does look pretty great. There's not really too much of it where I'm like, yeah, that looks super fake. It looks pretty great, guys. Mason Thames as Hiccup really brings this character to life. He is great. That kid has so much talent. He has so much talent. And I've seen him he was in The Black Phone, and he was in a movie on Netflix called Incoming, which was pretty solid. So, and I've seen him in a couple of other things. He's obviously got The Black Phone 2 coming out. So I'm very excited to see what else he does. And yeah, he was great as Hiccup. Gerard Butler, obviously he played Stoic in the other ones, in the animated one, and he was fantastic here. It was probably one of maybe my favorite performance of his, and the fact that I'm saying that is crazy because he played Stoic in the original animated movie, so it's pretty wild to say that. Nico Parker, who I thought did a pretty solid job as Astrid. I swear to God, I'm sick of people saying, "Oh, she's white," or she's not white. Like, that's not what Astrid looked like. Doesn't matter. She did a really good job here, guys, and I really bought the chemistry between those two. I see some people saying that the romance wasn't quite as strong, but I don't really focus on the romance plot in the How to Train Your Dragon. I'm there for Hiccup and Toothless. So, if you're going to complain about that, go for it, but it's not really a complaint of mine. What else have I got here? Oh, Nick Frost. Okay, so a pro and a con, actually. A pro is that he is pretty fun as Gobber. He didn't do a Scottish accent, which was not necessarily a bad thing, but there were at times where he kind of was in and out of character, which was a little annoying, but overall he was still solid. And despite kind of like my con about the other kids not given a whole lot to do, I still thought the performances were pretty good. I think they did well with the material they were given to work with. The score of this movie, since it's again the same guy, was phenomenal, and they nailed Test Drive in live action. They nailed it. A couple of times it's a little bit shaky to see what's going on with the flying scenes, but other than that, I was very, very worried about how they were going to do Test Drive and if they were going to do it as well, and they did. There's even like a couple of scenes in this movie that weren't in the original. Like, they added some new dialogue and new scenes, and it's a little bit longer than the original movie. This movie's like 2 hours and 4 or 5 minutes, and the original's like 1 hour and 30 something. So I was happy about that. It made that it wasn't so similar to the original film. Also, drinking game, take a shot every time I say original or animated or anything like that. I'm gonna do it. Yeah, no. So, like, the flying scenes, really, I think it made you really feel like you're up there. I thought the climax of the movie was pretty good. Very well done. The big-ass dragon they have in this one, I was never impressed with it too much. I thought it was just like a big-ass obstacle they had to deal with in that film. And in this new one, it's just there again, but I think they, do a very solid job. I do personally think that this movie does justify itself. As I said earlier, it kind of will bring a new generation of kids, so this will become their definitive How to Train Your Dragon. And when this movie started and Hiccup says, "This is Burke," I was just like, I had a bit of a grin on my face. I smiled a little bit, and it kind of brought me back to 2010 when I was about 9, seeing the first movie, like the animated one, in the cinema. 15 years later, I'm 24 now, so it's pretty crazy to see that. It because like the original How to Train Your Dragon, those three movies are some of those movies that mean the world to me, and I love these characters. So if anybody really was scared about this remake, it was me. And I was very happy walking out of this movie saying, yeah, I really loved it. Not as much as those other ones, but I am very excited to see How to Train Your Dragon 2 in live action, since that's been officially announced. Oh, sorry. In 2 years' time. I am so sorry. God. But yeah, guys. The live action How to Train Your Dragon 2025. It's worth it. It's worth seeing, especially seeing it up on the big screen. I would highly recommend it. It is actually currently my second favorite movie of this year. Yep. And if you actually want to know I'm going to say my top 3 favorite movies of the year so far is Sinners. Obviously, this new live action How to Train Your Dragon. And Karate Kid Legends, which I know is not a popular answer. That's just how I feel. Alrighty, cool. Let me check time. Okay, that's actually a good time to end on. So I want to thank you so much for tuning into this 30th episode of the Porter Says podcast. I'm going to try and do some more stuff for the Patreon. Probably another behind the scenes video of maybe just Porter hanging around so then you can at least get some content. And I'll probably put that up on my Instagram maybe and TikTok if you want to see more of that too. Check out that those links will be in the description for sure. And yeah, so thanks so much for watching. Consider sharing and subscribing to this channel and going to follow me on Spotify as well and TikTok and all that. And once again, let's go Queensland. I know I'm wearing blue, and I probably shouldn't have said Queensland because I don't want too many people to know where I'm located, but oh well. Cool. Alright, well, I guess I will catch you guys in the next one.